Hey, big hello from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing and More. I have a very special guest today, Jenna Driscoll Miller. She is author of Data First Marketing, and she is the president and CEO of a Marketing Mojo, specializes in digital ads, SEO, and analytics. And I know that you probably think that data, analytics, marketing might be a boring topic. We are going to make it interesting and useful, insightful for you. So welcome to our show. So how do you feel today?
I feel great. Feeling really good. I'm feeling fantastic. So it's a great time to be out and, it's spring. Love being outside. So you're in Raleigh. I'm in Charlottesville, so I'm not too far from you.
Yay!
And, this time of year is beautiful. So it's great to be out and enjoying spring.
Yeah, excellent. All right, let's talk about data first marketing. All right, you wrote a book about that. Can you tell us what is data first marketing and how is that different from, say, data driven?
Yeah, everybody wants to be data driven in marketing, and we all talk about it. But unfortunately, I think that a lot of folks miss the boat on putting data at the beginning of what they're doing. So as an example, what we want to think about is we want to think about those goals that we attribute for our business. So what are the business's goals? A lot of times it's going to be revenue or ROI or lead generation.
Yeah. I mean, that's very typical marketing goals.
Right. So we want to put that at the beginning and understand fully how we're going to measure that throughout our campaigns and be able to predict and measure throughout the campaign. Unfortunately, a lot of times I think marketers feel like you have to just measure at the end of the campaign and then assess what happened. But in Data First, we're talking about how do you make sure that you have accurate reporting from the very beginning, that you're tracking everything correctly so that you can really understand how you're impacting those business goals throughout the life cycle of a campaign.
Understood. So what you are saying, let me paraphrase it, is understand your goals and how you're going to measure that and set up a process while you are developing your campaigns. Like the creative concept, the copywriting, the social media, everything is very, very important. But what you are trying to say is put the data first. If you want to do that, you have to set up a processes in parallel to track that while you are developing your campaign.
Correct. And then as you're planning this out, we have a campaign model that you can use, a campaign framework. And one of the things as an example that's at the beginning of that framework is using your persona data.
I think that's very important. Yeah.
Understanding who am I creating this content for and making sure you're speaking to their needs in that content you create and put that as part of your plan. But then how do you distribute that content? Where do these personas hang out? Where do they interact? And so every step of the campaign, that persona data is very important. But are we really using that to plan the entire campaign and to really define in our campaign who we're trying to attract, and then measuring on the back end as well throughout the campaign if we're actually achieving that goal of getting to that specific persona?
I 100% agree. Persona is the number one thing that the marketer actually need to make a decision in terms of like who is the person that we should talk to, who is the person that we should market to. Unfortunately, working in the corporate world for a long period of time, like the salespeople probably want to focus on decision makers, and then the product team probably want to focus on the broad end users, and then marketing was like, you know what, we should focus on specific job title. And I have come to realize that even internally on the client side or on the brands within the company, if you will, they have a hard time determining who the target audience is. But I do agree with you to make that decision and also make that as tight as possible in terms of who your audience is can actually help you determine your content, your editorial at the same time and have a greater success in terms of your measurement.
I was just going to add that sometimes you have more than one persona as your target audience as well. Like, for instance, if you're selling HR software, your target audience, while the HR user might be the user of your software, the reality is the IT department is involved in that decision-making process as well. And so you have two different audiences with two different sets of challenges and needs and information that they need that the marketing department would need to address in different ways. And so that's where that persona information and understanding the data and how people are buying your product are so critical. And that conversation between marketing and sales to fully understand who are all the players in this and how do we need to address those audiences with our content and with our reach.
Understood. I 100% agree with you. I think that's also a challenge the marketing department encounter. Like if they actually have two different sets, that's assume completely different sets of target audience. And granted, you were trying to identify the challenges, the common challenges they encounter as a starting point. But like IT managers versus say the marketing users, the way that they see a platform they need is substantially different. And then that create a challenge, if you will, for the marketers in terms of, okay, what are the better way to reach out to them? It's not just the pay media effort anymore. It's kind of what kind of content you can create that will resonate with both sets of audience. From my perspective, a lot of time, the number of personas also determined by the marketing budget. And I have clients that really want to talk to everybody, but they have a finite resources and budget. And my recommendation is always like, can you prioritize? You need to prioritize, you need to prioritize, you need to prioritize. Yeah. And another question I would like to ask you is, okay, so data first, and then we need to set up the measurement upfront and think through in terms of how we can measure that along the way. And how can a company or the marketing team make any assessment in terms of how well they do in terms of a data first type of marketing effort? How can they have a baseline?
So we created in the book, but we also have a website.
Can you tell us which chapter, if anybody would like to buy the data first, and what chapter specifically talking about assessment?
It's at the end of chapter 4. So there's two sections of the book. The first part of the book sets up the problem and talks about why we need data first marketing. And then the second part of the book is more action oriented, like how do you start getting on the right path. So in between those two parts of the book, around chapter 4, and I believe chapter 4 entirely is the assessment. And you can take this assessment and see where your marketing organization ranks on the marketing maturity model, the data first marketing maturity model. And so ultimately, no one's going to be perfect at this, right? We're all growing every day. And it's a matter of understanding where am I today, assessing where I am today as a marketing organization, and how do I grow to improve, and what steps should I take? And that's what section 2 of the book helps you do. Once you've assessed where you are, how do I then move my marketing organization further along that path, and what steps do I need to take?
Do you have a specific DIY template in the book that people can actually use to do their own assessments?
Yeah, that's what the assessment does. It's like a quiz, and you just take the quiz and answer the questions. And at the end, it will tally up the amount and see where you are.
You tally the total score. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we have a sample of that on the Data First Marketing book website. It's data-firstmarketing.com. And you can take a sample assessment. It's a smaller assessment. It gives you an idea of where you might rank currently.
So can you repeat that URL one more time so that we can capture it in our description? At the same time, people can hear that one more time.
Absolutely. It's data-firstmarketing.com.
When people try to, say, make assessment of data first marketing, or even try to implement it, what are some of the common mistakes that you see the marketers tend to encounter or harnessing the data?
One of the biggest ones I see is with Google Analytics. Almost everyone uses Google Analytics. It's very ubiquitous in the marketing world.
Oh my God. Oh, I hear you. Look at my eyes. Sad and crying.
I know. It's so depressing because tagging can make or break you, really, and what kind of information you have access to in analytics and whether it's accurate. And just as an example, we had a client the other day who set up something called a tracking template in Google Ads, and it overwrote all of the standard UTM tagging that is done in Google Ads automatically for you for Google Analytics. And when it came in, it overwrote all of the valuable information that we had. So we had to go in and take and rectify that situation so we could have a better understanding of the information of people coming into the site from Google Ads and what they were doing and how they were engaging with the site. So
This is more important for the pay side. Would you agree?
I think also for organic, though, like if you're doing organic social sharing and things like that, I think that's really critical too, because you want to make sure that you understand those investments and the resources that you're using, this investment in resources. Is it paying off? What do people do when they come to your site from, let's say, a Twitter post, right? You still want to know that information. And so sometimes Google Analytics is good at assessing when someone has come in organically through a social channel, but it's not 100%. So it's always better to tag if you can. So I would even say for organic social in particular, but as you said, paid. And also I think email marketing as well. Because unfortunately, when someone's coming through an email, they're not coming from a browser. There is no referral source. It just looks like direct traffic. And so you want to know, did they come from an email? And so email marketing is another place I think it's just critical to have UTM tagging.
The bottom line is tag everything.
The other thing I would say, as we mentioned in the book, a lot of people don't always realize that with a UTM tag, capitalization matters.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. And so, for instance, tagging, like let's say LinkedIn, let's say your source is LinkedIn. If you use a capital L and a capital I for LinkedIn.
Does that mean that you have to create multiple different possible tagging in case people use it differently? Or you are just doing the tagging specifically and just focus on capital L and then spell exactly like how LinkedIn is spelled?
What we typically recommend is that you develop a nomenclature for your organization, develop standards. And just to make it simple, like what we do in our organization is everything's all lowercase all the time. And that makes it easy because otherwise it'll see the capital L and the capital I as a separate source from the lowercase. And then your data is segmented in a way you don't want it segmented. So ideally, you want to make sure that everything is consistent. So come up with a plan for your organization on how you're going to approach tagging and have a standard. And then when you do that, that makes it a little bit easier to ensure that the tagging is done consistently across the whole organization.
I hear you. It's much harder in a bigger organization because there's probably too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And there's probably several people that doing the UTM and also tagging. Of course, among them, they probably need to have a standard process, and they should be the go-to source to get the UTM and the tagging done. And but in a small organization, I do agree with you to actually set up a process and make sure that everybody follow that nomenclature or a specific process. And I have come to realize for digital marketing, specifically, the processes and workflows are super critical. In order to be a modern marketer, I think that's a very specific skill set or marketing discipline that a marketer needs to possess.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Another thing I would like to ask you specifically, analytics tend to be scattered and fragmented. How should marketer go about consolidate if that's a possibility in terms of looking at all the data in a very holistic way? And I found that very difficult and challenging sometimes.
Many times these different analytics platforms, whether they be owned by Twitter and Facebook or whoever, or YouTube, whatever channel, is that the way that they track may not be the same way that Google Analytics tracks. So the first step is understanding how each one tracks. A good example of that is, for instance, when we set up goals in Google Analytics, those goals can tend to be a 30-day look-back window. And same thing with Google Ads. That's not necessarily true for, let's say, Facebook. It may be different. And so understanding how the different platforms track and measure differently is really important. But that's why I like to try as best I can to keep everything in Google Analytics that I can. That's why tagging is so important. But in certain cases, like you said, like on a podcast platform or even YouTube, where someone's watching a video on YouTube, that may not be translating into your Google Analytics because it's on a separate site or a separate platform. They're not on your website. What I recommend is generally having a dashboard that you can create. And there's so many great dashboarding tools that are free or low cost. In order to integrate that data with like my Salesforce or like to pull data out of there, I just use Zapier to pull that into a Google Sheet, and then I put it into Data Studio. There's lots of great tools you can use, again, that are free or low cost that can help you pull that data out and put it in one location. So you can have a single view.
Based on what you just said, they can definitely go for agency or outsource that. But it's nice to actually have somebody technical, probably as a part of marketing organization. Would you agree?
It's certainly helpful to have someone who is technically knowledgeable, especially around the analytics piece and who can do this type of programming. But the good news is with tools like Zapier, you don't have to know a lot of HTML or have a lot of technical knowledge to set that up very simply and easily. Marketers should not feel intimidated by pulling this data in because there's so many great tools like Zapier that can make it really simple and you don't need a lot of technical knowledge to operate it.
Let me paraphrase. You need to know what you need to measure. And the next step is with data is fragmented, there are ways, Zapier is one of the great tools that you can make that connection between where the tool is and pull that information. Say, if you use any kind of BI platform, and let's say it's a Google Data Studio, and you can use Zapier to pull that information into a data studio, and there's one dashboard and one central place that you can view all your measurement and the metrics. Is that correct?
And also you can use Google Sheets to pull into Google Data Studio. So you can pull all the data into Google Sheets and then do calculations if you want. So another good example of using that is like I'll pull in data from Google Analytics, but maybe I want to flip the dimensions and metrics. Sometimes I do want to do that. And I can do that by pulling it into Google Sheets and then importing it into Data Studio. So there are often workarounds you can do, or you can do calculations by using Google Sheets as well, and then using that to be a feeder into Data Studio.
So Excel and Google Sheet still by default. Like our way of tracking metrics. I mean, I don't think we ever get out of that. Seriously. I'm still using Excel sheets.
I joke with people that like when I hire young folks out of college to start a career in digital marketing, I like to make sure that they understand you need to love Excel and spreadsheets because that's really a lot of what we do. Yeah.
In addition to having a fairly in-depth knowledge on Google Analytics, another thing I 100% agree with you, the requirement is know how to actually work on the pivot tables, the writing the macro on the Excel. Another question I would like to ask you, if you can advise our listener or people who actually watch the video to focus on one specific effort right now to get closer to data-first marketing, what would that be?
Well, what's right in front of us is this Google Analytics 4 migration.
I know, GA4. I 100% agree with you. So do that migration?
I don't love it. Well, you need to start thinking about the migration today because Google is going to sunset Universal Analytics for most users, unless you're a 360 user, which is a paid user of Google Analytics. They're going to sunset Universal Analytics on July 1st of next year, 2023. So that means you're going to be forced to use GA4 starting July 1st of next year, 2023. So you should start thinking about that migration now and start tracking that data in a GA4 property now so that come next year on July 1st, you have year-over-year data. The other challenge with this is that Google is going to actually erase all of the UA information and historical data by December 1st of 2023. So you also need to archive your historical data.
They are going to erase that data. So you need to migrate the data to GA4. But once you migrate to GA4, that data will still intact. Is that correct?
No, it will not come over to GA4. So anything that happens with GA4 will start today when you start with your GA4 property and track from today forward. So it won't have historical data in the GA4 property. It'll still be in the UA property, the old one, until December 1st, 2023, when Google eradicates it.
Really? So it's a completely deletions. Even you migrate to GA4, that data will not stay around. We need to start tracking data so we have a 1 year worth of data for GA4, but everything we had in the past will be gone. Wow.
I'm sure there's going to be some backlash with Google. Maybe they'll change their mind. But as of right now, that's the situation. So it's important to have a migration plan for GA4. And some of the things don't translate over also. Like, for instance, I use something called content groupings, which allows me as a marketer to say, here's all my PDFs, or here's all my white papers, here's all my blog posts and things like that. So I can pull the data in a group.
Kind of like you actually have like a content management library by
Yes.
different formats of your content.
Exactly. And so there are many marketers out there who might use content groupings. Content groupings are currently programmed via the universal analytics, the current analytics interface. So you go in there and you say, here's the items I want. Like all the things in this subfolder are white papers, that sort of thing. In the new GA4, it's done programmatically. So what you have to do is you have to actually tag the pages themselves on your website as opposed to doing it in the interface. There are some items that you may be using today in Universal Analytics that don't translate the same way into GA4, which is in part why it's so important to have a migration plan and to think through all of these items now.
So if you are listening or watching this specific video and you are using Google Analytics as your main platform to track your metrics, make sure you start looking into your migration plan as soon as possible. You won't regret it. All right, very good, Jen. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for coming to my show.
Thank you, Pam. It was great. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Never miss an episode of B2B Marketing and More by following us here on YouTube and leave a comment while you're at it. You can also find episodes wherever you get your podcasts.